It's my great pleasure to introduce the keynote speaker for this session, Kirsty Whitaker. Kirsty Whitaker is the Executive Director of the Berkeley Institute for Data Science. She previously did basically everything good in the community, including things like the Tools, Programs and Systems at Alan Turing Institute, the Turing Way. She has been involved in pretty much everything that I have loved and enjoyed about this community. She also holds the record as being the only person to have done 2 keynotes at the Collaborations Workshop. So, yeah, that is quite something. But enough from me, and I'm going to hand over to Kirsty to talk about the future of research software. Take it away, Kirsty.
How exciting is that? Oh, I have a lot of FOMO. I'm very sorry that I'm not there with you all in person. I love the Collaborations Workshop and I will wear my badge with pride. So as Neil just said, I have a new job in 2025. I am the Executive Director for the Berkeley Institute for Data Science. I remain a solo mum to 3-year-old Mackenzie. It was her 3rd birthday on Saturday, just recently. For those of you who don't know me, I have a PhD in neuroscience, and then I have been working as an open research advocate for the last 10 years. And I gave a keynote back in 2018, and I went back and I found the slides, and legit, I love this talk. You should go back and check out the slides. They're really fun. We had Moana. I played a clip from The Greatest Showman. I gave an inspiring little clip about how those tiny little ants outnumber us 10 to 100 to 1. And so we should all stand up and stand together in solidarity to fight for what's necessary. I still agree with all of those points. And actually, this slide was in here, that incremental progress is still progress. And I got a little bit teary. I was like, man, I still need to hear that. Like, incremental progress is still progress. So honestly, if you take one thing, that's actually the message from a few years ago is still true. So for this talk, I wanted to do something a little bit experimental. All of you, many of you will know me. I know a lot of you. I know your good work. You know some of the work that I've been involved in. So I sat down with a coffee in the beautiful California sunshine, and I thought, what are the adjectives that describe the future of research software? And what I got to is actually, we're already here. We've already got the future of research software. It's just not evenly distributed, and not everyone is doing all of these different aspects. But essentially what I did is I laid out 26 different letters describing the future of research software. And my message to all of you is that we're already doing it. There's just a little bit of knowledge sharing, a little bit of deepening, a little bit of kind of continuing and learning from each other. So in my 20-minute talk, let me go ahead and zoom through 26 descriptions of the future of research software. So the future of research software has got to be trustworthy. And I put links on these slides to the UK Trustworthy Research Environment community and also the SARTRA specification. I think these are 2 projects that I was involved in when I was back in the UK. I don't think there's a good counterpart in the US. It's a shame because obviously the political situation makes it difficult to imagine how anyone would want to be sort of endorsing trustworthy work, but it is even more important. I've got this picture in here that talks about the value of an open source data safe haven. Importantly, that's open so that you can reproducibly deploy and reuse the infrastructure, not that you just make everything that's inside of it openly available. And what I really want to highlight from all of this work, which I'm so incredibly proud of being a part of, is that it's the humans. It's not about the technology. It's not about the research software. It's actually about the people. It's about the people who are making decisions about risk. It's the people who might be represented in the data sets. And it's also thinking about how human beings engage with data to use it in a responsible and trustworthy way. The next sort of adjective that I picked on is sovereign. And I wanted to highlight a little bit of some of the work that the Jupyter community has been investing in, particularly through our connections from Berkeley to the 2I2C non-profit. So 2I2C stands for the International Interactive Computing Consortium. And as it says on their website, we serve an international network of communities that create and share knowledge. And they use the Jupyter Hub infrastructure. I want to highlight down at the bottom here the greater than 2,000 upstream PRs. They're very, very dedicated to using open source infrastructure and sustaining open source infrastructure. And I also wanted to highlight, and this relates to the sovereign part, the community right to replicate. So one of their guiding principles is that the right to replicate gives communities the right to replicate their infrastructure in its entirety elsewhere, with or without 2I2C. So it's explicitly undoing a vendor lock-in. And this is their vision that these principles will lead to a more fair, just, and equitable world. And they think, and I agree, that they're the right foundation for more productive and impactful research and education. To just deepen this point around sovereign, the future of research software being sovereign, is thinking about one of our sister institutes at UC Berkeley, on UC Berkeley campus, is thinking about data science for the environment. And they work with indigenous tribes to co-design environmental stewardship. And there they are really thinking about the CARE principles. So collective benefit, the A here is really important, the authority to control, and where their responsibility and their ethics sit in. So my next one, this is just going to be really brief. I am super excited about thinking. One of the teams that I've joined in the last few months is a Force 11 working group on preserving executable research content, thinking about the challenges, frameworks, and best practices. And this is such an exciting sort of opportunity to think about how we can use the sort of executable and a kind of like web forward imagining of scholarly communication using the MIST Markdown framework, while also considering what needs to be preserved, what are our responsibilities around archiving, when you think about something being reproducible, for how long, and by whom. So I think the future of research software will be preserved. I also think, I hope very much, that the future of research software, that the software will be maintained. And I want to introduce you to a project that is led by two people who work with me at the Berkeley Institute for Data Science, the Scientific Python project. The mission for Scientific Python is to better coordinate the ecosystem and support the community of contributors and maintainers. So they have a sort of really, really important set of key stakeholders who maintain the core projects in the Scientific Python ecosystem. So many of you will know that you've used these tools. Many of you will not even know that you're using these tools because you're using domain tools that sit on top of all of those. Thinking about maintaining and also thinking about networking knowledge, I'm delighted to be zooming into you at the moment from Seattle, from the eScience Institute, which is a sister institute, and it's also a data science and AI institute. And we have brought 35 people who are experts and lead maintainers across the Scientific Python ecosystem to come together. We are going to do our team photo this afternoon. So I don't have this year's photo, but this is last year's photo. Everyone is the most lovely person that you could imagine. They all care so deeply about doing really, really powerful and valuable work for the benefit of science and society. And they often do extremely thankless tasks. But what they are focusing on is interoperability. How can they reuse knowledge from across the ecosystem so that they are as efficient as possible? And a flagship project for Scientific Python is the SPEC process. And the SPEC actually is like a bit of a difficult acronym because it sounds like a specification as in you have to do something, but the philosophy from the team is much more that is a coordinating document. They are places to bring, they are recommendations that have been co-created and then endorsed by some of the core teams. So you can see I've done a screenshot from their website, and if you go to that website, you can kind of look through and see all of these different best practices. Let me dig in. I'm using my different adjectives here. Let me dig into the idea of the future of research software being continuous. So Spec 0004, catchily named, is using and creating nightly wheels. And this came from a problem that a lot of these different packages are all dependent on each other. If one of them makes a release and it causes problems in the other packages, there was this sort of pattern where one package would do a release and then everyone else would sort of scramble like crazy to be able to kind of say, oh, hang on, like that's now a change for us. Our tests don't run anymore. We need to kind of catch up. So the proposal of using and creating nightly wheels means that each of the different dependency projects are now able to know that there's potentially a change that's coming down the pipeline, and they can be much more sort of considered and managed about addressing that. So this is something that everyone agreed would be really helpful, but it took some effort for these authors right here to come together and actually put down a few, it's very short, suggestions of exactly how you could run regular builds so that everyone can test against the correct things. It's also lean. I'm going through my alphabet here. One of the great goals of core research software will be to be the minimum that it needs to be. And there was a grant that colleagues of mine at Berkeley, Jared Millman and Stefan van der Walt, and then also the other co-I was Dan Schultz, who's at Colgate University on the East Coast. They were looking at the fact that across the scientific Python ecosystem, there are multiple different ways of engaging with arrays and matrices. And in some cases, they mean the same thing. In other cases, they're different. Sparse arrays in particular had very different ways of engaging and using the code. And so they got everyone together and looked to coordinate across. It's not just these 4 packages, it's actually sort of even further to start to depreciate matrix objects and move people to sparse array semantics. Now, I was having dinner with someone who works in spatial analytics, and that's it's a huge shift because now they have code that does technically run, but it is not up to date with the cutting edge. So what I want to highlight with this is that removing code is a great success. It is not the case that more is more is more, that actually like trimming down, letting sort of code that did its job well when it was there, but now can be more coordinated and more streamlined, more lean, is a great success. And the main thing that I want to highlight from this is the amount of interpersonal coordination, collaboration, and understanding that was needed in order to get there. Now, some of you will know, many of you will know about the project, the Turing Way, and some of you will know, and I encourage you to talk to Turing Way community members who are there in the room with you, that we are going through a governance change for the Turing Way project. Specifically, I don't work at the Turing Institute anymore, and also there is significantly reduced funding from the Turing Institute as of summer of this year. So we have to think about how do we empower people who are part of the project at the right level. So the best case scenario is that our community members, anyone who complies with the project's code of conduct, can participate. And where they are able to participate through a Git flow, they can put a proposal forwards, anything that they want to change, someone can review it. And so long as that it is a decision that is appropriate to be made at an individual level, the community member gets to make those decisions. There's a maintainer level of working groups tackling decisions that require longer term engagement and more specialized expertise. And then what we're building at the moment is a constitutional level or a steering group to think about project leadership that makes decisions that require the knowledge of the whole project and over a much longer time frame. And our idea with this is always going to be that we have a sustainable and healthy community. We want to have clear pathways for community members to join our working groups, and we want to have representation from the working groups at the leadership level. And then just as a little bit of a animation, we also want to make sure that the constitutional decisions are transparent to the working groups, and that all decisions and meetings notes are captured on GitHub as best we can. It's tough. It's a really tough exercise. The balance between giving people power but also recognizing that giving people so much information that they sort of drown and they don't know where it is, how to sort of move forward from it, is a really interesting one to navigate. So I will say, I think the future of research software is thoughtfully governed for the purpose of building a healthy and sustainable community. I'm going to speed up a little bit because I can see my little timer is tick, 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 ticking along. I want to shout out one of those working groups, which is the accessibility working group within the Turing Way. We have an accessibility policy, which was co-created, and a huge amount of work and incredibly valuable. And then we also have a really big chapter that came as part of our AI for multiple long-term conditions research support facility, looking at how do you run events that involve members of the public. It's a really long chapter. It's extremely valuable. And I encourage you to go check out both of those links. If you like the accessibility policy, you could adopt the accessibility policy. You could also adapt and you can improve it. Please do. And the PPIE events, again, please use it we would love to hear if it makes any of your lives easier to build a more human, trustworthy, collaborative environment. Listen, folks, I'd already used T for trustworthy, so I couldn't use T for translated. So I did a lot of Googling and found myself an adjective that started with X. Xenial means friendly to people who are from a different country than you. And so again, I want to shout out the translation team that's part of the Turing Way. Making sure that we are meeting people where they are also includes making sure that they have access to learning materials in the language that they are most comfortable. So the future of research software will be translated. If you want to fit in with Kirsty's cute little tactic, it's Xenial. Really, really importantly, the future of research software needs to be welcoming. And there are many community managers in the room today. Go talk to them. Their roles are unbelievably important for kind of actually making this vision that we have into a reality and making it widespread. The future of research software has to be usable. And one of the other roles that we pioneered at the Turing Institute is the concept of a research application manager. It's inspired by a product manager in tech. And that's making sure that instead of if we build it, they will come attitude, we're actually listening to the needs of stakeholders and making sure that they can engage in the open source software that we're creating. It felt really important for me to sort of acknowledge kind of the core purpose of the Turing Way, which is that access to knowledge is a democratizing factor. I'm already at 17 minutes, so I'm going to stop myself from editorializing about the political environment in the United States at the moment. But I will say that access to knowledge and recognizing that engaging in critical thinking and understanding is even more important today than it has been before. I want to shout out the amazing people within the Turing Way community, but also more broadly who are thinking about making sure that research software in the future and now is environmentally responsible. We have a chapter in our ethical research guide on environmental activism, thinking about making sure that you're using the smallest amount of compute that you need to for the question that you're asking. You'll notice that I've taken away the icons in the top corner. This is because we have entered the part of the talk where this is purely Kirsty's political opinions. Do with that as you may. So the future of research software should be open. And you might think that that's a given, but the current definition of open source AI is not open. There is a wonderful web page. This is this opening up chatgpt.github.io, where there's a team in the Netherlands who are looking across all of the different quote unquote open source large language models and looking to see really truly how open are they across about 20 different dimensions. I encourage you to advocate for the future of open source, for the future of research software to be actually open. I also am incredibly inspired by the ideas of queering technology. So I think the future of research software should be queer. We should always be coming with our most sort of creative imaginations, questioning the status quo, understanding what needs to be different, and being inspired by the people who have come before us, who have inspired new and creative ways of looking at the world. This is a picture of some creative drag queens who gave the opening provocation at AI UK, which is the Turing's flagship conference in 2024, last year. I also want to acknowledge that the future of research engineering must be brave. I think the statements that the Carpentries have made of reinforcing their commitment to inclusion, diversity, equity, and accessibility, incredibly powerful, particularly under the current US political environment. I also think that the work that you did rebranding Our Ladies to make it into a more inclusive community, it takes effort to change from something, particularly if that something is successful and it's going very, very well. So I just want to shout that out, that I think bravery is something that's going to be really important, even more important for the future of research software. Research software should be funded. The Jupyter Foundation has just started through the Linux Foundation. They now have a process for bringing in donations from partner organizations. So they have about $1 million this year to try to spend. It's a super interesting problem because $1 million is both a lot of money and not a lot of money if you're looking at maintaining something that's as core and widely used as Jupyter. So I am participating and really following a lot of the conversations that the steering group are having. Many of those conversations are happening in the open to think about the most responsible way of using that money. It is also literally my job now to bring money into the open source ecosystem. And so I'm thinking about how do we engage with philanthropy, and also how do we engage with industry to make that into a sort of feed forward in a positive cycle. The Chan Zuckerberg Initiative has done amazing work with 6 cycles of investment in essential open source software for science. And it is risky to rely on just one organization. I asked on Blue Sky and I asked on LinkedIn what adjectives people wanted to link to the future of research software, and respected was a really, really great answer. I think that research software is becoming more respected. I think that this report from Emma Karoun and Malvika Sharan that's talking about professionalizing traditional and infrastructure research roles in data is absolutely amazing and required reading for everyone, sort of slightly outside of this choir. I also think the fact that SSI have found a way to fund research software maintenance is really inspiring. We should act as though we are respected, and we will become respected, and we will respect each other on the pathway to becoming a respected group. We're getting close to the end. I needed a Z. Okay, I needed a Z, and the word zeitgeist is defined by Merriam-Webster as the general intellectual, moral, and cultural climate of an era. And what I want to say to all of you is that my vision for the future of research software is the zeitgeist. I don't know if it's the zeitgeist yet. It is for me. I've been talking about this for 10 years, and many of you have been talking about it for much longer. But I think it is becoming more and more of the zeitgeist. And what I would really want to say to you here is don't let AI be the zeitgeist. AI is not the zeitgeist. AI is sitting on top of extraordinarily powerful open source research software that was built by scientists for scientists doing important work for the benefit of society. Don't let AI claim that branding. It is our work at the infrastructure level that is truly part of the zeitgeist. And then thank you to Stefan, who gave me this answer because I was really struggling with a why. The future of research software is you. And if you see yourself as someone who contributes to research software already, that's great. Be really proud of it. And if you don't, then please let's find a way to make it so that you do see how you can be part of research software in the future. I wanted to finish with a little shout out to my 15-year-old dog, Luna, who passed away a couple of months ago. She was supposed to come and live with me back in California. I got her in California in 2010. She actually passed away in the Lake District staying with my mum. And I put this picture in here because I thought some of my slides were a little bit austere. And I wanted to finish with my last 3 adjectives, which is that the future of research software is visionary, it's kind, and it's joyful. And if we can keep making sure that we are aspiring to greatness, that we are bringing a great forward-thinking imagination to the future of research software, we are always being kind to each other, and we are celebrating each other, and we are celebrating the parts that we find joyful, then I think we're there and we'll make it. And please never underestimate the power of a few committed people to change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. Thank you, everyone, and well done.
Thank you so much, Kirsty. We have time for some questions. We've got a couple on the slide or just now, so I'll just kind of crack straight into them. So the first question we've got is from Jez, and it is, sometimes when people say that they want to be trustworthy, what they mean is that they want to be trusted. So how do we disambiguate between those two things?
So I kind of want to sit down with Jez and have like a longer conversation about that. I think the key difference for me is that trusted sounds like a point in time where you don't have to continue to engage, whereas trustworthy is an ongoing sort of practice. I think also trusted it collapses down into sort of somebody checks a box. And that somebody is probably not capable of representing the great diversity of stakeholders who could participate in a system. So trustworthy is something that a project, a system, a person can control themselves. How other people feel about them is kind of outside of their control. So I think the framework is about thinking of it as being a continual process that you always have to be reflecting on, and then asking the question, do you trust us? Rather than a sort of risk mitigation. I think in a meeting yesterday at the Scientific Python Developer Summit, we were talking about a cover your ass kind of approach. And the cover your ass approach is okay, but it's not as inspiring as saying, am I in fact a trustworthy entity?
Great answer. So Toby asks, around the Turing Way governance, I love the idea of formally decentralized decision making. How will decisions be made about what kind of decision something is, whether it's a community decision, a maintainer decision, or a constitutional decision?
Yeah, it's fun. It's just sort of like you get into the great spiral of decision making. Who gets to make decisions about the decisions, and then who makes the decisions about the decisions? The culture that we have in the Turing Way is one of people are less confident to make a decision than maybe they could be. So we don't have a problem with a sort of like Wild West culture of people making like bonkers decisions and just kind of like blazing a trail forwards. And in a sense, what that means is that we actually have the work to as requests for decisions kind of ascend this sort of hierarchy of complexity, it's a responsibility of people at the right level to actually send them back down. So I can give an example was that when I returned from maternity leave at the beginning of 2023, the infrastructure working group for the Turing Way had been sort of really, really finding a lot of pain points from the fact that the GitHub, the Turing Way GitHub repository was inside of the Alan Turing Institute GitHub organization. And when I sort of came back, I was like, how's everyone going? How's everything going? And they're just like, oh, if we had our own organization, that would be so much better. I really wish we had our own organization. And I said, well, why don't we have our own organization? And it was this interesting question of being like, well, because nobody said we could. And so what we did is we scoped up the question was the way that we allocated it was that the infrastructure working group put together the proposal. That proposal went as a pull request to the whole community. Anyone could feed in. Because it is a very large decision to move the GitHub repository, it was not actually a decision that was owned by the infrastructure working group. It did go up to the constitutional level, which at the time was me basically as a benevolent dictator, but not for life. And then we sort of gave that a thumbs up after the community input and then passed it back down. So there's something really important about kind of not making a decision by an expert because that's the easiest thing to do. That actually setting a culture of saying back to people, you can do this, I think is one of the ways in which we're going to kind of get to a more empowered and decentralized or semi-decentralized governance structure. I think if a community had the other sort of side where there was like people were just merging everything left, right, and center, it's a different answer. So you have to sort of curate to the culture that you already have.
Okay, here comes the AI question. What role, if any, does AI have in the future of research software engineers? How do we protect ourselves against its destructive effects?
So I have so many opinions, I'm giving a keynote talk, so I'm allowed to stand on a soapbox for like 1 more minute. So one thing is I think we should stop calling it AI, right? It's not artificial and it's not intelligence. It's a large language model and they're pretty clever, like it's pretty cool what they can do, but it's just, a pattern recognition from lots and lots of data. So I think the first thing is see these large language models for what they are and see them for what they're not, rather than sort of feeding into the hype. I think there was a discussion at the Scientific Python Developer Summit yesterday around should open source projects allow any AI generated code into their code base? And the positioning, it was a broad ranging discussion, but the positioning was they are trained on kind of copyrighted input, or they're trained on, even if it's open source, they're not attributing. So the BDS or the MIT license requires you to acknowledge where you got the code from, even if you go ahead and reuse it in some way. So the argument was that we are polluting our own licenses and we are sort of becoming part of our own doom, basically, by saying if a license doesn't matter, then a license doesn't matter. And then what do we think attribution looks like in a kind of like, it's essentially like a post-license world? I think it's a really interesting discussion to have. And I think probably where I come down is that the most important thing is that people know what they are doing. I can see a world where AI starts to become very useful for templating things, or it's sort of the equivalent to like a spell check, that it helps you maybe get started. I think the critical thinking and understanding, not the prompt engineering, but actually understanding like what is the challenge that you're trying to solve? What is the question that you're asking about the world? And I mean that in a statistical way, but maybe I also mean like, how do I code up this web page? I think in really seriously investing in those human intelligence skills, and we can do that as a community of practice with each other, as well as educators to people who are less experienced than us. I think that's probably the way through. Yeah, I'm going to stop there.
Okay, so I think we've got about 20 seconds left. Yeah, so one sentence answer. What can we do to push for more open software in the community?
One sentence answer, be more outspokenly proud about the fact that you're doing it. I think it's curiously hard to find evidence of people saying, I did this piece of work. And I know this is supposed to be a one sentence answer, and I'm just not going to listen to that part. one of the challenges that I have as in my new role at Berkeley is the culture of people who are maintaining core open source scientific software. They say, I do it because it's important to do. I don't do it for the glory. I don't do it for the accolades. I kind of want to be able to pay rent and, I want to be able to sort of pay my bills. But really, I get a lot of joy from being part of it. It brings me a lot of pride, and I think it's important work. And I spend my life saying yes to all of that. And also, please, could you take a little bit of glory, because that will really help me to not sell the work, because it's not about selling the work, but communicate the work and communicate the value of the work. So if any of the adjectives resonated, pick one of them and then tell people about why you're proud to be working in open source software. It is really joyful on the local level, and it's incredibly important at the societal level. So have that integrity inside of yourself and just talk to more people about it.
Thank you, Kirsty. I'm always so inspired whenever you talk, and I really wish we could just have conversations like this all of the time. But for now, can you give some glory to Kirsty?